In the fifth episode of Girls Band Cry, we have the fiercest and most emotionally charged fight to this point, but it's also the first episode that doesn't involve someone talking about quitting or resisting joining the band. The Diamond Dust continuing without Momoka has been a recurring topic, and as I said last time, that usually means an episode will come that makes things plain. I'm not sure we really have the full picture now, but in a roundabout way, we do get something of an answer to why Momoka quit the group and was about to quit music altogether when the story began. The fight between Momoka and Nina in the Izakaya is the first scene so far that made me want to stop and replay it before continuing onwards. And the reason I did was that everything Nina says in the first part has one subtext with the information we had to that point, but a different subtext after Momoka says her piece. We don't know why Nina's words get the reaction they do until we understand Momoka's point of view, changing the argument from friction into tragedy. Going into their fight then, we had something of a rough idea. It's not something Momoka wanted to talk about, even willing to outlast Nina's stubbornness to do so, which I thought meant it was more than simple creative differences. But the only other context clues we had still pointed that direction. The promotional posters for Diamond Dust and its new member with their idol-like matching outfits seemed like details that didn't jibe with the Momoka we knew. The one who insisted Nina's stage outfit be her bearing her heart, and whose own stage style was more punk-inspired than pop-inspired. The things Momoka tries to shape in Nina are all about her own authenticity, putting her real feelings into her song and performance. An indie band ethos coming into conflict with a mainstream one seems like a simple enough answer to the split, then. And the venue owner in this episode shares a version of what he understands that sounds like that same old song. Now, perhaps Momoka wouldn't just say that because she didn't want to sound judgmental, or maybe there was some agreement on all sides not to talk about it, or something else innocuous. But if that was all, then why did the story begin with Momoka preparing to quit music altogether? If she had some musical direction that she cared about enough not to sell out to the man, then you'd think she would set about finding other like-minded musicians to try again. Quitting everything and even giving away her guitar doesn't sound like the actions of someone who has such strong opinions on music that they'd balk at changing for the sake of mainstream appeal. And the fervor with which she has bounced back into making music and building a band likewise doesn't seem like someone who is minimally invested into the scene. Now, after last episode, I think Nina would have left the matter alone, would trust that Momoka has some good reason that she won't explain why she quit, but the chance encounter with the venue owner changes that trajectory. Nina and Subaru return with him to his place, where Nina will notice that the old Diamond Dust poster has been replaced by the new one, removing Momoka from the wall and putting this new, somewhat familiar girl in her place. Diamond Dust themselves had stopped by, though whether they or he did the replacing is unclear. He'll have tickets for them, but Nina knows better than to broach going to the concert with Momoka, worried it would start a fight. At this point, she really is trying to let sleeping dogs lie. But even before the concert begins, Nina has the sense that something is amiss. She looks around at the audience, which is almost entirely men, many of whom have glow sticks in hand, and that does not seem like the right crowd for the band she knew. Once they begin, though, all hell breaks loose for Nina, as it's enough for her to confirm that she knows the replacement member. A brief tangent then. Girls Band Cry is 3D CGI for the main and secondary characters, and a lot of the environments, mixing in some hand-drawn characters and backgrounds and live stuff as they see fit. It's very expressive and fluid character work for CGI, but the real advantage that medium has over 2D hand-drawn animation is in camera movement. It's incredibly challenging to make dramatic camera or perspective shifts in 2D look right, for a number of reasons that we won't dive into, while it is comparatively trivial to do so in a 3D workflow. To this point in the story, though, fancy camera movement has been largely restricted to the concert performances at the end of the first and the third episodes. So something of an expectation has been established. Creative, moving shots are part of the fantasy of the world inside the song, and they're not part of the sober reality that exists outside. But apparently, they were just slow-rolling us for this moment. When Nina recognizes who the new singer is, we get this amazing slow-motion camera movement up from the stage where the girl sings, all the way across the venue to Nina, as though we were ourselves riding along the realization and crashing into Nina's psyche, which is immediately a firestorm of tension lines transporting her and us into the past. Last episode, I made a comment about Nina distrusting people who play pretend, who put on an act, and it made me wonder if she had been burned by some two-faced girl as part of her past trauma. Well, wonder no more, as it seems even her friend did not take her side in whatever went down, and I would hazard a guess that feeling betrayed was a far worse state than being bullied. Now, in the present, that betrayal is redoubled. In the video I made about the premiere, I pointed out the evolution of the song Nina So Loved, going from the studio version to Momoka's busking to Nina's own performance at the end, as though the song was changing custody. Now it's back again, and that girl is singing it, standing where Momoka should have stood. The cosmic injustice of it is more than Nina can handle, and sleeping dogs lie no longer. But her grousing during their practice session just annoys Momoka. She makes it plain that this is Nina's problem, not hers. Just like last time, Nina gets worked up when Momoka retracts or seems not to care about things she thinks should matter to her. They're just going to have to get it all out. So that's how we end up at the Izakaya. And so, going into the spat, Nina has reason to believe that Momoka left Diamond Dust because she didn't want to be part of what they're doing now, that they are going in a direction that she doesn't approve of. And because the band in general, and Momoka in particular, are so important to her, she's enraged to see what they've become, memory-holing Momoka and replacing her with someone she thinks is superficial. It's not even the same band in a literal sense, as Momoka played guitar and sang, so the new version is down one instrument. To Nina, it must seem like the 3 years of effort that Momoka put into Diamond Dust was all for nothing, that they've taken her songs and cast her aside, and she was the outnumbered and spurned party. Remember that Nina was once turned into the outsider in her own peer group, even losing friends, and like we saw in the water-soaked desk flashback, for part of that period she just meekly accepted it. The song that is so precious to her seems to mark the period where she stops just taking it and pushes back, based on the little flashback where she takes over the broadcasting room and the scene where she argues with her father. Her forehead is bandaged in both seams, so I presume they happen relatively close together. To Nina, then, it must surely seem that the very person who gave her inspiration to push back is doing nothing of the sort herself. Maybe it's subconscious, but I think she is linking the two of them and their plights together, that they shared the same circumstance. Even in her part of their argument, she uses language that she previously used about herself, telling Momoka she quit because she thought she wasn't wrong, and later on, that Nina doesn't want her to lose. And so Momoka comes clean. Diamond Dust's highest priority wasn't a particular direction or particular music, but a goal to keep the original band members together until they were old ladies, to never quit. To her mind, then, everything that is wrong is her fault, as she is the one who quit. But we don't get a ton of details over how this goes down, but the other members told her to be patient, that one day they'd be able to do what they want to do. But Momoka couldn't do that, and so their little pact was broken. So it's not creative differences, really. The things her bandmates said to her suggest that they, too, don't like the changes that the label asked for. Creatively, they were probably all still on the same page. Likewise, Momoka says the most important goal wasn't music or direction, so it may not even be that Momoka balked at the specifics of changing for mainstream appeal. There was instead something about the arrangement that Momoka couldn't stomach. It's a values difference, not a creative one. Maybe it was a matter of control, trading autonomy for popularity. Maybe it was a matter of authenticity, that Momoka wouldn't be able to be her true self in the deal. Maybe it was about respect, that being converted into a girly band instead of letting them succeed on their rock credentials was too untenable. In fact, in this episode, there are 2 instances of people making assumptions about a girl band. When Nina gives the ticket away to a classmate, she immediately says she likes metal. She is assuming whatever Nina is a part of would be far from that. And just before their set, we have another band member come by just to antagonize them. He says, "No offense, but I don't vibe with girl bands," and Momoka starts to protest that they're not really a girl band. They're just a band that happens to be composed of girls. Unfortunately, this is not the stuff of fiction, girl rockers not getting the same benefit of the doubt as their male peers. And it may be none of that, but Momoka felt there was some line she couldn't cross, and was the lone holdout. Maybe if just one more bandmate felt the same, then things would be different. But with the others in alignment, she feels like she is the problem. If she'd just agreed, everything would have been fine. It's her fault she has a sticking point. She's the one that broke their most important goal. Small wonder she was ready to quit it all. Small wonder she has been getting drunk on the regular. The tragedy here, from my point of view, is that Momoka might have the wrong of it. If staying together really was the most important thing, then why did the other three accept the deal anyway? Why not keep doing what they were doing until a better situation came along? Unfortunately, we don't have enough detail to understand. Maybe they were already on contract before the objectionable things began. Maybe in the arguments that followed, some things were said that can't be unsaid. All we know is that Momoka thinks she is to blame, that everyone else was right. She and Nina aren't in the same situation. They're in opposite ones. With that in mind, then, we can understand why Nina's words are so galling to Momoka. Nina thinks she's the one who is betrayed, so can't understand why she defends them, or why she won't say what she thinks of their current direction. But Momoka believes herself the betrayer, that she gave up all rights to an opinion. In fact, maybe her opinion is simply wrong to begin with. Maybe the reality of splitting up and losing what she had has sunk in, and she now doubts whatever conviction drove her to quit. Whatever the truth, she was ready to leave it all behind and wants to avoid the topic entirely. It's a wound, and Nina is jamming her finger into it. Worse still, she is saying things that Momoka likely did believe at the time, that she couldn't accept the change, that it wouldn't be the diamond dust she knew, that the song Nina loves is the kind of stuff they wanted to do. But that kind of thinking has exacted a heavy price for Momoka. She lost something irreplaceable. Who cares about who's right in that context? Nina doesn't want her to lose, but Momoka believes she has long since lost. Small wonder Nina hasn't seen her really smile. Small wonder Momoka held herself aloof last episode, was cavalier about the reality of band members coming and going. I imagine some part of Momoka is afraid of going through the same turmoil again and holds herself at arm's length. And so it's sort of precious of Nina to be so upset on her behalf at the end of their fight, saying that in spite of what Momoka shared or how she blames herself, Nina still likes her music, was moved by the diamond dust she was part of. Momoka judges herself wrong, and Nina refuses to agree. Momoka has drunk too much, and Nina helps bear her home. But there's a moment when Momoka apologizes, hugs Nina close, and lets herself cry. Much happier music kicks up at that moment, and we cut ahead to Momoka's home, where the other two have gotten her safely tucked in. They smile as they leave her to sleep. Quite a change from how Nina reacted to Momoka's excessive drinking back at the beginning of the story. She's far more sympathetic this time around. It's clear they'll all be better for the evening's heated exchange. Now, after Momoka is asleep, Subaru suggests that Nina pick their stage outfits. Seems fair, considering she had hers decided for her last time, but that's not really it. Subaru reveals that despite what Momoka asked, the venue owner has advertised her association with Diamond Dust in the promotional material, no doubt hoping to capitalize on their new fame to fill his own seats. Subaru sees it as an opportunity then. There are likely to be Diamond Dust fans in the audience, and Nina has history with their new singer. It's a chance to say something directly to them. I want to note real quick that I talked about Subaru playing the role of a drummer in their dynamic before, that she keeps them in sync in more ways than just keeping time during their performance. This suggestion that Nina pick the outfits is one example. They'll be united by her decision. Her insistence they quit practice so the two could have it out was another, and she sat between them to make it a little easier to speak openly. She even accidentally unites them by irritating Nina enough to get her own drink bath, as Momoka takes a little momentary delight in the development as well. But she also goes with Nina to the venue and then to the concert, and follows her out when she needs to cry out her angry disbelief. She explains to Nina the ticket-selling setup, sparing Momoka from telling her that she just cost her some money. And she just generally tries to moderate or placate as needed, making nice with the venue owner when Nina is confrontational, or trying to appease the disturbed crowd during the other two's fight. She's a natural drummer, it seems. And Nina, perhaps, is a natural frontman. The title of this episode is Rising Vocals, and certainly there is a focus on vocalists, introducing the Diamond Dust singer and the fact that she has a history with Nina, but I think this goes beyond just Nina's role in the band. She is increasingly finding her voice in all matters, and increasingly making that voice heard. She needed no convincing to do the live show this time around, actually seems rather determined. She felt somewhat tricked by the ticket quota situation, and makes her displeasure known when she runs into the owner. And though it's extenuating circumstances, she does talk to someone else at the cram school. Interestingly, it's just about the only time she seems like the old, meek Nina. I guess schools really aren't her best environment. She will go outside to shout her emotions at the concert rather than let it just simmer inside. She will pick the fight with Momoka and really lay it all out in the bit we've already covered. She will show her displeasure with the venue owner again, and she will interrupt Momoka's response to the heckling guy rocker to tell him that they are going to tear it up themselves, even if she drops all the bravado a moment later. Momoka has been trying to get Nina to put herself into her song, to speak her truth, and maybe she has created a monster. The outfits Subaru suggests, then, are another way Nina is going to speak, a way to say something to any Diamond Dust fans who have turned up. To her, their new makeover is artificial, an image that doesn't match the band underneath, and she thinks of their singer as someone superficial to boot. The response to that, then, is to say something authentic, perhaps painfully so. Thus, she chooses shirts that name each of them in unflattering but accurate ways. My Crunchyroll subs have Subaru as liar, Momoka as withdrew, and Nina as truant. And we talked a bit about those translations in Discord. Liar is fine, but Momoka might have better been something like resigned. But connotation-wise, I'm going to think of their shirts as saying liar, quitter, and dropout, as those are pejoratives and feel like a much more punk-appropriate set of terms. Nina answers the phoniness of Diamond Dust with ugly truth, and the rest of their outfits likewise seem to invert a bit of Diamond Dust's ensemble. Momoka and Subaru wear tights, but they're mismatched or torn. Nina wears a skirt, but hers likewise is missing part. There's a note of not pretending at an innocent or immaculate presentation. And notably, all of their outfits are different. They are individuals. Even the shirts which match in theme are each different in noticeable ways. Interestingly too, this performance is the first that is authentic in the sense of remaining in reality. There are no imagined fantastical elements, like the underwater sequence, or frozen in time rain, or the Nina clones, or the mid-air brushstrokes. It's a neat choice, considering the context. They make up for it by being especially aggressive with the creative camera movements and angles. Made me feel like I was inside a music video. It enabled us to see something else, too, but I'm going to come back to that. Once they are on stage, we first get an interesting little set of events. People are calling out for Momoka, the DD fans who were expected, and you can see the audience members with their phones out are focused on her. Momoka then crosses to Nina and suggests they just go right into the song, as opposed to Nina doing any kind of crowd work. And Nina brings up the idea of leaving a mark, the phrase that inspired her to do the shirt thing. These truths about them are a mark on them, a scar, a blemish. But she also tells Momoka that her song ripped her heart out. It left a mark on her. The idea of leaving marks appeals to her. Again, something that is meaningful, authentic. And then we get a rising vocals example in a more literal sense, as Nina has this mantra she breathlessly rattles out, hyping herself up, and it's all about putting every part of herself into what she's about to do, to bear it all. And now, the cameras in the audience are pointed at her instead, as she builds steam into beginning her performance. The song begins, the crowd is into it, and Nina shows herself a pretty decent hand at stage presence, her body as much a part of the performance as her voice. And as they get further into the song, the frenetic camera close-ups give us a great view of how they feel about this first real concert experience. They are having a blast. They're grinning, they're energetic and expressive. I think Momoka even starts hopping at one point. Smiles on all their faces, authentic ones, and this too is part of what they are saying to the crowd. Remember last episode's focus on the significance of genuine smiles? I don't know if this is just the same way Momoka used to smile, but it feels like she's at least getting close. It's interesting, too, to compare them to the bit we see of Diamond Dust. Sure, their singer is smiling and bouncy and energetic, coming over to other bandmates to pose in ways that suggest their closeness, a performance that we know is empty, but the energy of the original Diamond Dust members is a little restrained compared to what we see from our trio. Still smiling, pleasant, not their opposite or anything. It's brief, but comparatively they seem subdued. Even the last frame gets in on the comparison between the two bands, once again inviting us to compare beginning and end. Nina, hand raised in a defiant and triumphant posture with her band on a live stage, is how we end, while the first part of the episode is the Diamond Dust promotional, a recording on a TV. Their synchronized outfits, hand movements, and words are a world apart from the trio at the end. This episode as a whole, then, introduces a possible future that I hadn't really assumed would be in the cards, one where Momoka's new band and old band might collide. I thought Diamond Dust would just be a point of introduction for Nina and Momoka, and hang over things as backstories often do. I likewise thought of Nina's hometown history as just the thing that weighs her down, that for each of them, these matters represent the weight of the past. At the most, I thought we'd revisit things near the end, maybe see how they'd grown in the interim. I never expected them to inform the present of the story. And now, someone from Nina's hometown is here in the city, in Momoka's band, and because of the venue owner's stunt, I think there's a non-zero chance that Diamond Dust will hear about this performance. It's actually possible some of them could have been in the audience incognito, since they came by the venue after Momoka booked the show, and this guy seems like someone who likes gossip. While I do expect Momoka to try avoiding her former bandmates, I wager Nina and her vocalist counterpart are due for a reckoning at some point. There are hidden parts of Nina's and Momoka's backstories still to come, and now it seems there's a possibility of getting insight from outside parties. I don't know what trajectory I most expect at this point. On that note then, let's talk about goals. I have been somewhat mystified at the lack of macro goals in the story to this point, but now I understand why. Momoka once had such an all-important goal, to never quit, and she gave it up. We track goals because they explain character motivation. The Momoka we met at the beginning had surrendered a goal, and was thus unmotivated towards anything. And because the lost goal was devastating for her, she has not opted to take on another. Instead, it seems she's just feeling her way along for the next step, and taking the other two with her. Now that Nina has the ex-friend in such a confounding situation, I won't be surprised if she suggests something, but we aren't there yet. In the meantime, we might count it instead as one for conflicts. Momoka created a monster, after all, and I find it hard to believe Nina won't do or say anything about the Diamond Dust vocalist. The attention on the performance might also get Diamond Dust's attention, and that might be a real bother for Momoka, or at least a distraction for their band. And honestly, too much attention is a bad thing for Nina and Subaru, as there is likely to be trouble if their families know what they're up to. In characterization, I want to mention Nina's dislike of lying again, because Subaru this time demonstrates what I meant last episode in a more straightforward way. Nina hates that she wears the high school uniform because she thinks it can give her advantages, as well as the suggestion of salesmanship tactics for moving the tickets by lying about their original prices. When they run into the venue owner, Nina expresses exactly how she feels, but Subaru puts on this sweet, extra friendly act instead, a rather dramatic contrast. We also got a tad more insight into the Beef Bowl girls, who I hope get names at some point, at least the taller one. She buys some of Nina's tickets sight unseen, and she's very clearly interested in our trio. At the concert, she seems to be having a great time as well, so I am guessing some kind of conversation is in the near future. For world building, the big additions are all about Diamond Dust, their new look and target audience, their new vocalist, and Momoka's version of splitting from them. It's still an incomplete picture, but at least much less of an enigma. We also got insight into the workings of the live scene, as well as some of Momoka's history in that arena. And despite what Momoka said about people not valuing free things, Nina's classmate did attend her concert and appeared to enjoy herself, so I have to imagine she'll say something. There now exists the possibility of Nina talking to people at the cram school, or even people learning she's in a band and coming to talk to her. What a brave new world that would be. I will also amusingly add, that we now know why Subaru wears a school uniform despite no requirement. In theme, that idea of the personal things in songs is back, expanded by Nina's notion of leaving a mark. Momoka's song did so to her, and it was something akin to violence, or ripping out her heart. But she treasures it all the same, and perhaps wants to leave a mark of her own on someone. I was tempted even to add this in goals, but she might not quite be to the stage where that idea would inform her behavior or decisions, so we'll just see if it comes up again. I do at least find it interesting to broach the subject in the same episode where her ex-friend is now the one who sings her treasured song. The custody of the song has moved again, perhaps, but the mark on her is unchanged. I feel like we're watching Nina expand her understanding of music and its impact then, and I'm curious to see if it drives her to action. There was also the opposing ideas of authenticity and fabrication between the two bands, which we've already discussed, though it's amusingly also a tension between Subaru and Nina, where each is perhaps too dishonest or honest for their own good. Momoka occupies an interesting space in this idea, unable to accept some aspect of what Diamond Dust was asked to become, but so very reluctant to share the truth of why she left. She pushes Nina to speak her authentic feelings while holding her own in check, with this episode potentially a breaking point. That, at least, is what I take away from her approval of the shirts, and I won't be surprised if we see a little less aloof Momoka in the days ahead. That's all for this week, then. Thanks, everyone.